All right, all right. Greetings. Welcome, everyone. If you can hear me, got it. This meeting is being live streamed. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. Greetings. We're just getting started. I'm using Zoom. This meeting is just now being live streamed. The topic of this video is going to be hidden adhesion contracts to dismantle, series 2, advanced master class. This is going to be an advanced master class because Currency 365 shared my video, which I appreciate, helps get exposure. I titled this, instead of part 2, this is series 2, continuation of the previous video that I had most recently done this past month. This is the first video of this month of April that I've done. Once again, the title of this video is going to be called Hidden Adhesion Contracts to Dismantle. This is series 2. This is going to be action-packed information. So without further ado, as usual, this video is going to be for educational, entertainment purposes only. Please keep in mind everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her homework and research regarding the matter being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. Any event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, it is encouraged you do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource channel is not liable or responsible for anyone's misuse of this information. Please keep in mind, everyone is responsible for their own commercial affairs. With that being said, all rights are reserved. Now, to get into the topic, I've just shared my screen so you guys can see what I'm reading. I'm going to be going over this document. Not sure how long this video is going to be. I don't really want to be before you guys too long. I'll check the chat section. I do apologize for coming before you guys real late or early in the morning. However, sometimes I have to try to fit this in based on my schedule. I'm still on the graveyard shift. So without further ado, this document says how to rescind or revoke unjust adhesion contracts. This is also referred to as invisible contracts as well. That's like another term. I'm going to read this document and go through some of you all that are maybe already familiar with this information. But the reason I titled this advanced master class, a lot of people that are doing 1099s, this has been like a hot topic lately. I kind of put that on the side. I did a couple videos not too long ago, several. And if you haven't subscribed to my backup channel, I got videos, action-packed information on the 1099 where I'm already answering questions from a while ago or showing the different variations that I know people that have had success. In many cases, they use different processes. There are different procedures, contrary to popular belief. But the reason I'm doing this video, if you're using that and you haven't set up your estate yet, you're not operating out of the 9(8) trust, the foreign trust, you're still doing business as a U.S. citizen, or you have certain contracts still as a U.S. person, U.S. citizens, same thing in that jurisdiction, by the way, then you really need to pay attention. The previous video that I did a video a while ago on my channel. You guys should really check out. It's really important. I'm going to give you a secret. It will help put you on the do not detain list. I call it the poor man's do not detain list. I was working on a webinar a while ago for all the people who've helped me with private consultations that's donated to the channel. I did make a list, but it was so many. So I just decided to just give you guys everything. It was even suggested in the past that before I started charging or doing a subscription service, that I do like an introductory class. But since this information, this is for not only newbies, but this is also advanced. But you can do this as a newbie. That's one of the first things I did when I started learning about this information, by the way. Very important. You got to get rid of that voter registration, and don't be an organ donor. That's attached to a lot of times in many states, the Department of Motor Vehicles. It's funny, they can register you, but you have to go to the Department of Elections to have it canceled. So you have to find out in your local jurisdiction or your local area. Go there ASAP, get rid of that. They're supposed to give you a copy of that card. California Election Code Section 22 is uniform with all other states. The registration of a voter is permanent for all purposes. during his or her life until canceled. That's California Election Code Section 22. I remember back in 2004, Paula went over that code when I was woken up for the first time. Appreciate the Nuwabi and Morris. She was working with Bobby L, rest in peace. Brother Ben Davi, Brother Ishmael with the Yamasee Creek Nation. Thanks to those activists, they helped unlock my mind back then. They helped wake me up. I followed the blueprint, and it has helped protect me tremendously until I can get to those higher levels. I'm not there yet, but I can tell you for sure the things, I have a trained eye that I've seen. This information I'm going over, the more you remove these contracts, the more it'll help put you on the do not detain list and even assist you, even with that passport, getting 4 or 5 stars, by the way. A lot of people, even if someone I was dealing with that was really advanced, could clearly see. And I have a private source, a legitimate private source, by the way, that confirmed even with the 4 stars that they have, there was benefits that come with that that's much greater than even just operating with the 3 stars. 3-star, you're just doing business as a U.S. citizen, and you want, even though I have not started that process yet, there's numerous processes. Some of you guys, just to let you know, have asked me what type of paperwork have I filed. I have done a lot of paperwork throughout the years. I've done an authentication, did an apostille years ago. I was familiar with the cancelator process, that dealt with the common law court. Canceled my voter registration. I've done DBA. Some of the DBAs expired. I've done a UCC years ago with a security agreement, common law copyright. I've done that years ago. I have an estate. I have a 9-8. I haven't started operating because I'm trying to learn correctly how it is supposed to be implemented. But if you're not at that level, if you're not operating through the estate or the 9-8 trust, then this video is very, very important. If you're still, if you're learning about 1099 and you're doing the discharge, because in case some people say, if you get a knock on the door by the alphabet, you know who, or whatever, and people start, doing like this, shaking. This is a kind of example. You're going to need this information, because the more you remove these adhesion contracts, you dismantle them, they will help you tremendously, especially if you're a person of color. I have some more information, confirmed information. It's even connected to the Library of Congress and the National Archives, that Black Americans, African Americans, melanated Americans have dual citizenship. Check out Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition, the Dred Scott case. By the way, this gets more extensive. I do have an indigenous name, by the way, but like I said, I'm still learning more information, how to correctly use that, how to correctly navigate. But you need to dismantle these contracts. Those of us that are still, I'm still in some of a similar boat, but you want to dismantle certain contracts. Also, some people say if you file paperwork, will that save you? It's actually a combination of both. It's certain documents. You want to also do a W-8BN. I haven't done that yet myself, by the way. I need to. You want to have your DBAs. There's different types of DBAs to do. And I still have confirmation from a private source. Big shout out to the brother. He knows who he is. In the DC area, I won't say his name because people will be blowing his phone up. Some people that recognize this information or that follow me or whatever, you guys know when information, like especially with the 1099, it's been spreading like wildfire. But big shout out to that brother. He's confirmed to me the Minnesota DBA has still worked. There was even a white woman he told me that he knew some years ago and said it had police officers shook. You know how to correctly implement it. It does work, but there's some things you need to make sure that you do when you file that. That will assist you along with removal of your voter registration. You need to get rid of that ASAP, and don't be an organ donor if you can be. I understand certain people have certain conditions, but if you still have to do those things, then you would have to do something extra. But if you can remove those adhesion contracts, by the way, this is a master jewel I'm giving you. It will help protect you, because the law enforcement, they have a database. When they look up, they pull people's plates over. It's called LEAN. LEAN is an acronym for Law Enforcement Information Network. That is linked to the NCIS database, the FBI database, and it is centralized. It's linked to Homeland Security. An individual told me some years ago when I went to check, by the way, I'm going to get into this article, but I'm going over this information so you guys would have a thorough understanding why it is important, how it protected me years ago, and how it put me on a form of the poor man's do not detain list. Not completely, but of course, when you get to higher levels, there's more private things that will help protect you, I should say, because these other contracts that you enter into, they're referred to as benefit privileges. But my private source stated to me, by the way, he was a client of some people, a private team of people that set up trusts for very elite people, by the way, that dealt with high net worth people privately on the free sector. I'm not talking about the public sector that's rich, because people get confused, like it's a difference between being rich versus being wealthy. You know, there's people who pass down generational wealth. There's people who get rich and go broke. I'm not talking about rich people that are public, that go to jail, stars, stuff. Now, some of them know this, but there's a demographic another friend of mine refers to as the shadow people. You want to maneuver like them in the free private sector. That's actually the correct name. The free private sector, not the private sector that is public. Because another friend of mine that worked Obama's campaign some years ago called me and said he heard Obama say that in a speech, and I had to clarify, no, there's a difference, you see. But see, they don't want this information to be put out there basically in the general public. This is why I'm giving you guys a powerful jewel, but this is specifically geared towards people who are already awake to the truth, people who are already red pill, that know this information to be factual. This is not conspiracy theory. I'm not part of a financial cult. This is not a cult. I'm going over real legitimate information, and I have very legitimate private sources. I won't say their names to protect their identity, because my top sources, I protect them very, very well. And sometimes we meet privately, by the way. So just, I just wanted to give you that. But before I get into the article, he stated to me, this individual who was a client of this group that set up trusts for very elite people before they had to shut their office down, by the way, is that they used to provide a service where they would assist putting people on the do not detain list. There was a particular way that they did it. Also, there's information for people who are familiar with this type of redemption education. The guy that puts out those books you can purchase on Amazon or makefreedom.com, those redemption manuals. And the edition that's discontinued, they had a section in there how you would fill out the application, or you would submit some paperwork to the FBI or whatever, NCIS. It was a contractual agreement. But that book, that series, was one of their, I think, their first books from the redemption manual. Many of you guys are familiar with that because I shared that earlier, a long time ago, by the way. But one of their first books is no longer in print. It's discontinued. They went over the do not detain list. So it was already public information if you know what to look for. Because I got accused of certain things, and I won't get into that. But if you know what to look for, it was already public information about the do not detain list, or some may say the do not mess with me list, or different names out there. Okay, so one last thing the individual said, when they set up this group that set up trust for very elite people, they told him when they provided this service, this process, there was allegedly a color-coded system. They could see, they generally, law enforcement, they won't come out and tell you when they can see this stuff that you can't see if you get pulled over, and it links to other things. They have to have information like when there's major criminals and people out there, etc. But they have information on everybody. By the way, about the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917. They have, and if you know about what's it called, Lisa Haven did a video. This is important. It's called Mainnet or something. I can't think of the name, but it has it's closely associated with. They have a file on every U.S. what you may refer to. I'll just say for the purposes of U.S. citizen, because some people don't understand there's a distinction between a non-citizen national, foreign national, and many companies and places are hiding it, or their gatekeepers or underlings just simply don't know or don't understand, and that is a form of subterfuge because they're not giving full disclosure. That is a form of violating your due process of law. Due process of law is, there's a violation when you're not giving full disclosure. That's why entities, and when they give disclaimers, they have to provide full disclosure, and you have to have the ability, as I'm going over these contracts, sometimes I forget to mention this, you have to have the ability to be able to opt out. Like when you're registering, when you're renewing your driver's license, for example, just using this as an example, eventually you're going to want to get rid of those things entirely. There's another way to travel, because drive, I'm aware, is a jurisdictional term. I'm aware that they use words of art and many other words, like car is cargo, that's associated with Admiralty Maritime, Admiralty's military and maritime is law of the seas. They've combined both jurisdictions together to ensnare you covertly, by the way. So when the clerk asks you politely, would you like to be registered to vote? It's funny, they can't cancel it. You have to go to the Department of Elections, but the DMV, like here in Michigan, for example, I'm sure it's pretty uniform in other states. They will ask you also, they'll ask you to be an organ donor. That is an offer to contract. Many instances we don't realize when we go and interact and do business each day, we enter into multiple contracts we're not even aware of, even when you go to a fast food restaurant. That's why they study marketing, what people want. They provide an offer, or, different flavors or different products to see what people are into. They made an offer. You tender the payment, by the way. That's forms of contract. Or when they have things they want, rewards programs, they want you to sign up for. Those are adhesion contracts. Those are attachments. Adhesion is like adhesive. You're attaching something, but it's hidden. It's done, it's covertly. And that's what's putting you in their jurisdiction as a U.S. citizen, U.S. person, giving you guys very powerful stuff. I feel this is important. And okay, without further ado, it says how to rescind or revoke unjust hidden contracts. We, the people, have the unlimited right to contract guaranteed by the Constitution and the common law preceding it. We, the people, also live in a commercial culture dominated by commercial agreements and contracts whereby our freedoms, rights, and sovereign state citizenship has been contracted away. So this article, by the way, is going to help explain what I was just going over with you guys. By the way, this is very important. This is highly advanced. This is important. If you know what you're doing, you're going to see the benefits. Once again, one of the main contracts to get rid of, go to the Department of Elections, find out in your local area, also trace back any places you formerly lived at. I would even go as far as if you could travel to those other states, get rid of all those hidden adhesion contracts that could be pulling you in jurisdiction. Your birth name based in the state you're born is generating revenue for the state, by the way. I was told this years ago because I was born in a neighboring state. By the way, some of you already know which state that is that are familiar with me or know me personally. And I was informed by an individual down in Florida that assisted me. Appreciate that, brother. He told me this some years ago that your name is generating revenue in that state. And this is where the DBA comes into play, because a lot of times when people are pulled into court, which is another form of a hidden contract, by the way, and they use legalese, which is like another language, even though it's still English, but some of these words that we use, it's convoluted, meaning like the term income with the IRS, that's a whole separate series. The income is convoluted. Did you receive gold and silver? Did you receive precious metals? Remember the older Federal Reserve notes that we used to carry years ago, these FRNs, this was not called money. This is not legally, these notes, it says, once again, this is a Federal Reserve note. Keep in mind, legally. So if you're pulled into court, there's some things they can do if you have certain adhesion contracts, or you don't know when they use the words of art, trickery, which is forms of subterfuge to trick you in to their jurisdiction, by the way. And there's that, all of that is a reason. So when you remove these adhesion contracts, they help put you on the form of the do not detain list. The more, the better. But you remember, you have to also continue consistently operate a certain way is important. You have to demonstrate what's called limited contact. I was able to interpret that two advanced brothers some years ago, by the way. Jonah Bay, Yusaville went over that. You have to practice limited contact. By the way, I already understood some of these things, but some of this other stuff wasn't touched on. So you have to be consistent, or you can put yourself back in the jurisdiction. You see, so this also involves not having certain types of bank accounts, using cash instead of your debit card if you're not operating out of the LLC or trust or business. Because if that bank account is attached to your SSN, That's pulling you skip tracers, which are forms of detectives for debt collectors. They're debt collector detectives. They're called skip tracers. By the way, look up what skip tracers are. And you're wondering why, if you swipe the Kroger card or Meijer card or Walmart card over the weekend, Sam's Club, and even though that's attached to your bank account, whether it's Visa or MasterCard, and that account, savings account, and it's interest bearing, which creates a taxable liability, you're more in a jurisdiction, more adhesion contracts, hidden benefit privileges, then you're wondering why that Monday debt collectors or skip tracers are calling you for a bill because you popped up in the system. Boom. You see? Got you. Okay. Every time you sign your name on a form, you are entering a commercial agreement that can bind you to perform as specified. Some of these contracts may be harmless. Renting a video, okay, this document is kind of old because a lot of people, I think most of the video renting stores are closed down. Correct me, maybe some places, because a lot of times nowadays people have Netflix. But if you understand what this document is saying, some of these contracts may be harmless, yet others might bind us in ways we do not fully comprehend. Long distance phone companies bind you to the law of the District of Columbia. These are called adhesion contracts. Contracts must be voluntary in nature and fully disclosed to be enforceable. That's why I went over due process. If you understand due process, I had a brother years ago that helped train me, taught me privately, helped teach me this information, who had experience going up against judges, lawyers, etc. And he iterated due process is very, very important. Because you're supposed to be given notice. The parties must also be able to perform. But I'll read this part. These are called adhesion contracts. Contracts must be voluntary in nature and fully disclosed to be enforceable. You see, and that's why in some instances they have to give you the ability to opt in or opt out. Like when you sign up for different things online, if it's insurance, car insurance, and you have those disclaimers that says check this box or read this information, they have to give you notice. You see, they have to provide, that's part of providing full disclosure. You see, like I give a disclaimer up front. This is important because see, if you don't reiterate how you're operating, they will assume and you will enter in by acquiescence. By the way, you will acquiescence your way into some of these hidden contracts, by the way. So this is a definition of adhesion contract, a contract so heavily restrictive of one party, it has e.g. a U.S. citizen in parentheses, while non-restrictive of the other. The government corporation that doubts arise as to the voluntary nature of the contract, take it or leave it basis, weaker party has no realistic choice as to its terms. Do you realize that when you complete it and sign the form 1040 tax return, you volunteer into the jurisdiction of the federal United States government? Admitting being a corporate person and federal government employee, agree to abide by all the rules and regulations of the Internal Revenue Code, and therefore became subject to the state and federal income tax. Do you know that Form W-4 is a gift and a state tax form for federal government employees, not for American state citizens? Yeah, this stuff gets pretty deep. Yeah, it's pretty. There's other documents that go further. By the way, look up the website famguardian.org or SEDM. I think that stands for Sovereign Education Defense Ministries.org. Those sites have been around since I woke up. Some brothers I met back in November of 2004. Actually, I met privately through a source who was a music artist, put me up on those websites, and they have been around. Big shout out to whoever the people are that are running famguardian.org or SEDMs, that Sovereign Education Defense Ministry. And there are still other sites out there that are free that you can dissect this information. We'll go over the difference between being a foreign national versus U.S. citizen, by the way. A lot of this, there's tricks the IRS has within the Internal Revenue Code. That's why I mentioned earlier, the definition of income is convoluted. Were you paid in lawful money? No, you were paid legally in fiat. You see, they're playing games too, where they're supposed to abide by certain rules within their statutory realm. They're commingling in many cases. But the reason they get away with this stuff is because people simply don't know, or through fear, or they have access to they have deep pockets or army of lawyers and things, and people, not as many people are aware that are standing up for their rights. By the way, their lawful rights. So let me scroll further down. Where you were ever told by anyone in the government, when you applied for a social security number, you became a U.S. citizen and waived your unalienable rights as a sovereign state citizen, became a federal government employee by enrolling in a federal government retirement and insurance benefits program, transferred your power of attorney to the Social Security Administration, and was made liable for the federal debt. Yeah, remember that national debt that you see that's like 30 trillion now? You know, the bankers that set this up years ago, you guys will want to do more further research. Now, some of you are already familiar. That's why I went over those documentaries, because this information can get really extensive. For those who want more information behind the context or want the validity of the history, this information I'm going over is very accurate, by the way. And there's things that I have to still follow through with myself. I'm at a certain level in this, by the way. I'm not a guru. I'm advanced. I'm not a beginner. But I'm giving you guys a powerful jewel, because there's even a lot of advanced people who are not aware of this or these particular documents. And this was given to me by one of my elite private sources, whose name I won't share, that has a big thumb drive folder in a particular file. I won't even say the name of that file, by the way. And I started reading through this, and I said, wow. And this is actually my first time. I've skimmed through this document before, but I'm reading this document with you guys for like the first time. I had the other document that I went over in the previous video that I've done. So to reiterate, you want to study these videos. If you're doing 1099, discharge, any of that stuff, you need to pay attention to my previous video and this video, by the way. And you need to go and do those things I went over. Okay, we went over, yeah, you about the Social Security. That's a form of adhesion contract. That's a benefit privilege. By the way, that's a form of how they entrap everyone. You can still get that back. Remember, you have an estate, but if you didn't claim it, by the way, you know, you're still doing business on a particular side based on how you sign things. But there's ways to reconvey that or exchange that trust fund, because you're only paid in increments, small portions if you retire. And they say that's going to run out by like the 2030s, 2035 or something, like they estimate that's going to be gone. So some people are like, what are they paying that for? I mean, I understand if someone has an accident or emergency, you know, you still have it taken out just in case. A lot of people that collect disability, but they always fight you over that. But that is a major adhesion contract benefit privilege, by the way. And they're only giving you a portion. When you have there's a way, Patrick Devine went over this years ago, how to pull down that whole funds. And remember, many of us even got a statement from them that shows what you paid into Social Security since you started working. So you should have an accrual statement. I had that somewhere when I started working. When I was 16 years old, they sent me a statement. I haven't received it in a while, but it lists what you paid in there. With, you know, that's your whole trust, the fund, what you made on the public side. And mind you, when you you know, attempt to apply for that, they only pay you in a portion, which is a form of like a Ponzi scheme too. But you're old, you can get that whole amount. I have a friend who confirmed his mother actually used to work for them in Maryland. And even though she blew through it, but he said she was able to actually pull the whole thing down. She didn't know anything about this stuff. You know, she's still brainwashed, blue pilled in the system, but she was able to pull it down. But she did used to work for the SSA, that administration. So, you know, just letting you guys know, on the public side, I can break things down a certain way. We have sources. I have legitimate, credible information. I want you guys to know the authenticity, the accuracy of what I go over is credible. So next paragraph, did anyone ever fully or honestly disclose the intent of the state motor vehicle codes when you apply for and received your driver's license? Were you aware that the driver's license and vehicle registration laws and occupation taxes for commercial drivers, truck drivers, taxi, and chauffeur, and that sovereign state citizens needn't apply, providing you own your own place to travel device, etc. Okay, the driver's license and vehicle registration are voluntary contracts to become subject to the Department of Motor Vehicle Codes, get licensed, get insurance, register your vehicle, and pay the fees, which are occupation taxes. I know an individual was going over this some years ago that most people don't know. There's codes that state when you get a driver's license that you're swearing under penalty of perjury, that you read the whole entire motor vehicle code. You know it by heart and you can recite it. When you don't read those disclaimer boxes, this is what you're saying that you're saying you signed up for if you got a driver's license. And generally this is uniform with all states, by the way, that issue on the public sector, public side jurisdiction. If it's not an IDP, that's a whole nother type of education behind that particular course. So this is explaining also, you unknowingly agreed to transfer the lawful title of your vehicle. You're really supposed to get the MCO, manufacturer certificate of origin. Is the equivalent of the car's birth certificates. But you know, the way the process is, they've created a public side process with the dealerships, the way they run people's credit. That's public. That's a public contract, and they make thousands of dollars. There's a brother out there, big shout out to, who just started a YouTube channel who I subscribe to, called Coach MT Financial. And he explains, I've heard this many years ago prior, he did a video explaining how when they do credit inquiries and they run your credit multiple times, these places are getting thousands of dollars. Even some of these apartment complexes, you can 1099 can be utilized. You have to look up their tax ID number, because if they ran your credit and you took they took a security deposit and you gave them your social security number, they're acting as utility companies, debt collectors, and they're becoming super conglomerates. But behind the scenes, they're making all that money and you're not getting a cut, and you're not even claiming back, even if you did pay with Federal Reserve notes, fiat. You're not even recouping that. So this is a form of thievery. This is theft. This is subterfuge, by the way. But you have to make sure, and that's type of contract. If you're not renting from someone privately where you have a private agreement, that's different if they're not set up as a corporation. But if you're renting from like a condominium, townhouse, apartment complex that has multiple properties, you need to look up their tax ID number, by the way, maybe to that specific property. That will go on the 1099 A form, or whatever the information that's necessary. If you have the instructions, there's some people, the guy I just mentioned, he did an instructional video, by the way, big shout out to try to assist people. There's different processes for that. They're not all the same, so it depends. By the way, there's another guy that's assisting people, with the housing thing, and he explains, him and his wife, they articulate very well. They're assisting people. So this is not legal advice or financial advice. I gave a disclaimer. This is not tax advice. However, you're encouraged to please do your own homework and research. By the way, everyone is responsible for their own commercial affairs. By the way, just keep that in mind. Okay, state when it was purchased from the original dealer. I was going over the manufacturer certificate of origin at a traffic stop. When a police officer asks you for your driver's license, vehicle registration, and proof of financial responsibility, they're asking for you to provide evidence to indicate that you've entered into a contract with the state. You're within their jurisdiction. They're really supposed to have, when they turn their sirens on, a lot of people don't know this, they're supposed to have probable cause, because that means when they turn their sirens on, that they're supposed to be an actual federal emergency under that, true probable cause. These other things, that's why they're trained a certain way to engage when they ask you certain questions. Do you have any weapons on you? Do you have any drug paraphernalia? Those are ways to ensnare you and trap you into these adhesion contracts to get you to agree. Because, in the court system, they use legalese. And what you were taught in grade school, when they ask you, do you understand? You think it just simply means to comprehend. But no, in the legal system, it has a totally different meaning. It means you accept the contracts. You say, yes, officer, I understand you were doing 85 and a 55 mile per hour zone. And they're saying they're getting you to agree, verbal contract, verbal commitment. Or can you please step off the car? You don't challenge. I do not give consent. You do not have probable cause, XYZ. Now, there's people that are trained on that, but I'm just giving you guys an example how they're trained versus how some other people are trained to deal with those type of situations. That was just a synopsis, by the way. It says, if you are a resident of the state, then you're required to have a state issued driver's license. If you're operating a motor vehicle, then registration plates and insurance are required. If you present any of this evidence, then the presumption stands that you are subject to the motor vehicle code. You have just indicated yourself and the police officer is witness to it. Let's see, those are forms of adhesion contracts. If you don't have, it's easier for people if they don't have a job where they're required to have a CDL or do, because they actually consider you a commercial driver, even if you're not a truck driver. How you're doing interstate commerce, I have to go over it. There's differences between interstate and intrastate. I think both of those are statutory jurisdictional terms, but even as a regular citizen, even if you don't work for a truck driving company, you have a regular driver's license, according to the motor vehicle codes, they consider you transporting goods. That's why car deals with cargo, like Admiralty Maritime jurisdiction is covert within the court system. There was a sister I was helping years ago where her son got caught up on a gun charge down in Virginia, by the way, and she told the judge, she said, I have power of attorney over him. And the judge told her, he said, no, ship failed. He said, ship failed. And I said, oh, I said, the judge is speaking in code. They captured his vessel already, which is ship. That's in Title 9 of the United States Code. That's often, if you look up the definition in Latin in the Black's Law Dictionary, look up res, spell R as in Robert, E as in Edward, S as in Sally, res. Res stands for a thing. They consider you a thing, but also a ship. They're moving the vessel. So they, the judge told her, he said ship failed. That means they had captured his ship, his vessel, his entity, which is part of the Inlingus. The guy told me, brother, helped wake me up. Big shout out to Del Rico years ago, back in 04 to 05. And he said, Title 9, that deals with vessel of the United States Code. See, they're playing these games. They consider you a ship lost at sea. By the way, that's civilitor mortis. They consider you dead. Look up civilitor mortis. I went over this in some of my older videos. If you guys go back and check out some of my older content, that's why I went over the definitions. You know, I'm still brushing up myself. Civilitor mortis, civically dead, civil death. That's what that means. Civilitor mortis, you know, civil death. Notice how these terms are closely related to, like, when people die, you know, like mortician. What is mortgage? Dead pledge. You're dead in the transaction. What is underwriter? They undersign your name, steal the contract from you. Underwriter, or they take power of attorney. That's why they have you sign power of attorney. They steal the allonge note, so they issue you the allonge note. Sometimes you don't even know about it, attached to the promissory note, allonge to the promissory note, so they can steal the security instrument from you, which the security instrument is the check. You see that you were supposed to get some of the portion that was left over from closing, because they use your credit, or they use off of your Inlingus. It was already prepaid for, but they created a process to ensnare you and steal from you covertly. You see, you were dead in the transaction. They had you sign power of attorney. They did the allonge note that's attached to the promissory note. They could steal the security instrument. That's the check from you. Part of it. While they created all these different positions between underwriter, loan officer, you know, all those things. You see, it's an act. Like in the court system, the judge sits from a bench. Bench is a bank, by the way. What it in the river bank, Jordan Maxwell broke this down many years ago. I just found out. Rest in peace to Jordan Maxwell, the Godfather. I found out he passed away March 23rd, reported by Project Camelot. Project Camelot, rest in peace, Jordan Maxwell, the Godfather. He dealt with, as an alternative historian, talked about eschatology, astrology, investigative researcher, phenomenal scholar like Michael Tesseri and many others from back in the day. Some of my spiritual brothers put me up on these guys years ago that helped wake me up. By the way, big shout out to my brothers that they know who they are, my spiritual brothers out there that are connected to the spirituality movement that put me up on this. But Jordan Maxwell did a lot of research that contributed to the sovereign movement years ago. A lot of people don't know. See, I know the history. He contributed to cracking the code. Now, they didn't have all the information back then, like Barton Butts, Dan Benham, and others, but God bless those guys for the work that they put in. So I pay homage and give credit where credit is due. Thank you. And a lot of wisdom to the Godfather, Jordan Maxwell. He breaks down how in the court system, this goes back to many years ago, even with the birth certificate, comes from a concept where the captain of the Port Authority many years ago had to provide what was called a certificate of manifest that had, similar to your driver's license, the weight with the color of the ship. Like driver's license has the color of your eyes, your race, if you're black, the color of the ship, the weight of the ship. It traveled through the river, deals with water. Water deals with electricity, energy, circuit. You also have circuit courts. You see water law, circuit. They combine admiralty is military, a maritime is law of the sea. So they took these concepts derived from many years ago. I have another document that goes over some of that information. So I don't have the full context, but Jordan Maxwell, being a master investigative researcher, alternative historian, forensic historian, I would say, into astrology, eschatology, the occult. There was others that knew him, Gerald Celente, I believe, Michael Tesseri, and others. Jordan, you will be missed. Thank you for your work, by the way. Just had to say that on a side note, but many may not know he contributed to the research done in this movement, because this is well hidden. This information is amongst an elite group of people that my friend calls them the shadow people, that are high up behind the scenes, that keep this information secretive. They were taught by their parents. They were sent to private schools by invitation only. You see, they studied out of encyclopedias, so their vocabulary levels and things like that is immaculate. It's phenomenal. You know, it's not a coincidence. See, they dumbed the rest of the population down. That's why Rockefeller, I found out the documentaries help educate you on this. In the early 1900s, he wanted the math textbooks dumbed down. He didn't want people to be too smart. He wanted to create worker bees, slaves. You see, they don't want you becoming wealthy. So I believe with the dinar that it's very evil what they've done. Things, you guys, that's why I said, see a lot of hopium coming out there. You're going to have to take action, and you're going to have to implement things to free yourself. Because there's a saying, freedom is not free. You don't want to be free and dumb, like free dumb, because a library lie and bury the truth. Like library, there's an art play with the words. Library is lie and bury the truth. Attorney, look up the suffix of attorney, means to twist, to turn. A turn on you, to a turn, a twist. You see, you have to be careful. They can cash in on your estate. When you hire an attorney, you're declaring yourself incompetent. That's why part of my disclaimer I give, are you competent to handle your commercial affairs? They ask you this, are you competent? You see, but some of these are adhesion contracts to get you to acquiescence, to trick you. They use trickery, which is subterfuge. Look up these definitions I'm giving you, you see. So once again, to go to this paragraph, you're not a resident of any of the 50 states if you have no driver's license, vehicle registration, or proof of financial responsibility relative to their jurisdiction, and no other presumptive evidence that you've committed a crime in force, then the police officer has no lawful option under the common law except to release you. Usually though, the police officer doesn't know or make this distinction, and you will be getting a hassle. Be prepared to have your papers in order for a traffic stop. See, another thing, when you remove some of these adhesion contracts, like the voter registration and stuff, what'll happen is it'll come up like you won't have to, sometimes if you file the WBN, that needs to be filed. You have to file that. But with voter registration, that's something you're removing. And also, don't be an organ donor. Don't volunteer. because what's going to happen, it's going to eventually fall out of their system. But what's going to start to occur, if you're practicing limited contact consistently, you're not re-entering, you're not commingling back in public side jurisdiction. When you learn to understand that, don't commingle. Use cash. If you don't have an LLC or trust, when you go to fast food restaurants, grocery stores, you use a credit card, that's putting you back in their jurisdiction. If it's attached to a bank account that's attached to your social, especially if that bank account is savings or interest bearing checking, that creates a taxable liability. That's why I called this an advanced master course. I just gave you guys something very, very powerful, but it's important to follow that. Or if you don't, you're going to put yourself back in their jurisdiction, because some of you guys can interpret the key of what I'm saying is they'll be able to see in their database that they pull you over or before, it's going to tell them to do not detain, or it's going to have a color coded system they're familiar with, that's basically going to help protect you, remove you out of that, that jurisdictional realm, by the way. So hope you guys enjoy this so far. This is one of the most powerful, the most advanced master classes I'm breaking down to you. I may not finish this whole document. As you guys know, as I say, I'm still at the slavery plantation, by the way. And I just wanted to come before you guys, let you guys know I'm still here. But I know there's been a lot of talk about the 1099, those that are doing discharge. If you're still operating publicly, you don't have your estate set up yet. I'm still in the midst. I have all that already, but you see, it takes time to implement those things. If you don't have some of your UCC, non-UCC filings, that's something else that helps protect you. By the way, remember to file the WBN form. The DBAs are very, very important. These things will help protect you. But one of the most critical things is start practicing limited contact. Remove these adhesion contracts. I'm going to get to the chat section in a little bit in case to see how many, if anyone, join me tonight. I do apologize for coming to you guys real late, early in the morning, but it is for what it is. Sometimes I might surprise you guys one day. I may do another free consultation real late. So it says, to have a valid contract, there must be a valid offer and acceptance of valuable consideration. 2 or more parties involved. Number 3, parties who are of legal age and competent understanding. A termination date. Number 5, full disclosure. Number 6, the contract must be voluntary in nature. That's why I went over due process of law. Oh, it looks like appears to be a case law in here. It says adhesion contracts do not bind the citizen to a commercial contract without 6 elements of a valid contract. None exists. That's why lawyers, in some instances, they can get people off technical legalities and things. If they find out reviewing the case or they're doing discovery, if things weren't implemented correctly, because a lot of times they know their own constituents, the way the whole system is set up, it's a racket. That's why a tennis racket, you back and forth. By the way, the basketball court, you're back and forth. It's been set up. And in accounting, that's a dual-sided system, dual ledger. I've gone over that before, but it's racket back and forth. But there's a public side, there's a private side. This next paragraph, U.S. citizens are bound by many adhesion contracts, including voter registration. What did I keep harping on? Marriage and business licenses, incorporation papers, selected service registrations. That's why as we get older, some of us men, or you get summons to jury duty. That's all tied in. Sister, she mentioned years ago, some people who had children, she said they helped a couple family rescind that selected service form for their son, by the way. That's another form. Back then, I didn't know. My mom didn't know, by the way. But I did years ago, back in 2004, I did rescind my voter registration. Since they don't use terminate, they'll say cancel, by the way. But to finish telling that story from earlier, when I went with my private source and they were a client by those people, they told me when I told them the lady stated my name was blinking in red at the time on the screen. And I asked them, I said, why are you getting excited? And I had an enhanced driver's license at that time, by the way. But that's like another form of adhesion. But she stated at that time, this was back in 2012, by the way, he started getting excited and he shared with me privately the reasons why. So just to give you guys one of my confirmed private sources, by the way, and this same certain individual has a 4-star passport and went over an actual experience they had. I won't go into the details. I would probably have to really save that for Patreon because I don't want to allude to for some outsiders out there to who they are. But I have confirmation that this will help you. Those who are, I know you have to do that passport process a certain way. I haven't got to that yet. There's many different things you can do, but the source that I have confirmed that yeah, but he has certain contracts still lingering that were still tying, he explained to me, to his US person. Until he completely dismantles those, then you will be eligible for the 5-star. There will be certain I would say good private benefits that will come with that. That won't be jurisdictional on the public side, where things will change dealing with your status, but it'll be helpful for you, where you won't operate like before. You guys get it. So I went over, it says selected service registration, postal addresses, bank accounts, credit cards, tax returns, social security numbers, driver's license, and vehicle licenses, and subject to tens of thousands, it should say that's a typo, are subject to tens of thousands of statutes. It says U.S. citizens, I'll read this paragraph once again, are bound by many adhesion contracts, including voter registration, marriage and business licenses, and corporation papers, selected service registration. I will also add military DD-214 papers, beautician license, barber license, postal addresses, bank accounts and credit cards, tax returns, social security numbers, driver's license, vehicle license, and are subject to tens and thousands of statutes. That's under the statutory. Those are the codes. The codes are also copywritten. Just like these fiat promissory notes, these some called greenbacks, these Federal Reserve notes, this is fiat legal tender for public and private debts. But it states this is a Federal Reserve note, which is copywritten like the statutes. That's why it's issued by the Federal Reserve. That's the master entity. That's the copyright holder of those notes. We're using that as monopoly, you see, because we put faith into exchanging that form of currency, but it's not legally, it's not money. It's currency. Even though we're used to calling it money, legally, it is fiat. It is a form of currency, bartering, that system that we use to exchange for goods and services. Okay, it says here are a few examples of the hidden nature of these contracts and how they impact your freedoms of life. I may stop right there, guys. I'm going to check the okay, it just goes over a breakdown. I've gone over some of these before again, but I'm going to get to my other screen, see how many, if we have you guys have join in. Okay, I see we got 10 watching so far. If you guys can, don't forget to like the video, thumbs up, smash the thumbs up button. If you haven't, it helps me rank higher in the search results. Share this video. By the way, get this out. By the way, I shared Midwest's video when he interviewed the guy down in Texas. Forget his name. I sent that to a lot of people, by the way. I thought that was helpful. I didn't have experience in that area. I think someone asked me the question. By the way, when I started learning this information many years ago, I had never had a house or owned a home before. Imagine it is difficult when you're trying to red pill relatives. You're trying to wake them up and they fight against you and don't know you have their best interests at heart. But just keep that in mind. Some people, you won't be able to wake up. They're going to stay brainwashed and blue pill in the system. Many of us are red pill, but just continue to fight on. People who are receptive of the information. I got a lot of replies. Thank yous. Big shout out to you all that did reply. Thank you, by the way. Thank you as well for following my channel, by the way. Appreciate you all. So I'm going to read the comments and then I'm going to shut this video down. State Bound says, peace and blessings to you, fam. Appreciate you. Money Boy Films in the building says, what up, bro? Money Boy in the building, fam. Big shout out to you. I saw you on I think Drew, that's his name, Drew and his wife, their channel. I shared that. It was a powerful video. Big shout out to what Drew and his wife are doing, by the way, helping the people out in Midwest. By the way, salute to the brothers out there and people that are putting in the work. Gretchen Helm says salute at Dorsey. Peace, love 100. Prayer emoji. Thank you. Appreciate you, Gretchen. Says debt collector, inspector. Yes, those are the skip tracers I was talking about earlier. They're debt collector, they're vultures. They target you like open prey. Yes, you got to remove those adhesion contracts. Okay, see comments in here. Said Gretchen Helm says great teacher. I love legalese. Laugh out loud. Let me see. Cherokee Outlet. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name. Or Cherokee Outlet says greetings, Halito at Gretchen Helms. Peace and high energy. Greetings. Thank you for joining. Darkman X313 says branch is Latin, a Latin word for bank. Okay, thank you for the clarification. And then the bench, when the judge sits from a bench, I think that there has an association with Riverbank too, as well, as they're using water law, which is they've combined both jurisdictions. Admiralty's military, maritime is law of the seas. But see, all public corporations are supposed to be under public law, by the way. Sharky says, creature of Jekyll Island. Yes, G. Edward Griffin or Edward G. Griffin. By the way, they put out that work with the creature of Jekyll Island when they met secretly and created the Federal Reserve Act in the early 1900s. Yes, that is great. You overstand. That helps the people out. That's why I share those documentaries that go over that information. There's books and audios from years ago. Some of that information you can look up for free. That's still on YouTube, by the way, or Yahoo or Google search it online. Moneyboy Film says great video. Gretchen, thank you, Money Boy. Appreciate it. I know it's going to be action-packed. This is fire. I know this is going to be one of the best videos I've done because my concern was there's a lot of newbies out there that are doing 1099. Make sure you spread the word because there's, in case down the road, the agents knocking on the door, you're going to need to be able to explain. But when they look up your profile, you want to do not detain list or you're not attached to some of these contracts. It's going to go a long ways. Some of the gurus, some of the advanced people don't know this. That, I'm one of the first to share those specific documents. I don't know if anyone else out there has, by the way. They've explained it, but I'm going a little bit more in depth and showing those specific documents. And you can look those documents up that I went over in my previous video and this video. I also covered this topic a while ago in some of my older videos. So I might forget to mention certain things. So if you guys go back and watch my older videos, you might catch something that's key that I may forget to mention even in this video. That's why I encourage you guys to go back and watch my older videos because I've covered this, but it's very important because a lot of people that are using that process discharge 1099, and I know many of them don't have the estate set up yet or the 9-8, and they can be possibly putting themselves in harm's way. This will help protect you as you're trying to transition on the public side. There's many different processes out there. And with Christopher Hauser went over, that's like more so basic process, by the way, where a guy and other people, they're doing advanced stuff. And some of the gurus that charge thousands of dollars or charging big money, they were spoon feeding that information, by the way, are not completely going over. Everybody doesn't have the Federal Reserve notes. I understand why people ask a donation because time does equal money, but everybody doesn't have that. And until you can get there, you gotta do things to protect yourself. File the WBN too, as well. And I think some others out there mentioned that. Okay, finish reading the chat. L Bay says, what about the Red Res account and the SSN? Is that still legit? The Red Res. I'm not sure what you're referring to specifically with the red. The res I went over earlier. That if you look up the definition in Latin, that means it's referred to your straw man as a thing. There's another definition for your straw man or legal fiction, legal person, aka it's called in lingus. But the res, they also refer to, they'll call you a thing. And that thing, the res, is also tied in with Title IX of the United States Code. Shit, remember I gave the example, the sister that I helped years ago, she passed away, rest in peace, to Sister Shanania, Darlene. Her son got caught up in a gun charge on Virginia. And she told me when she tried to tell the judge she was fighting for her son, she told the judge that I had power of attorney over him. And the judge told her, he said, shit failed. I think he had already taken a plea deal. So he didn't know he had put himself in jurisdiction. They got him to take the plea deal, but they did some other things to him. She told me while he was locked up, they violated his rights and things. But see, once you already put yourself in acquiescence without even knowing, you know, it's just sad what they do to some people out here. But yeah, res deals with ship. I'm not sure what you mean by res account. If you're referring to the CRIS accounts, that deals with court registry investment system, just like the county deals with the CAFR funds. That's comprehensive annual financial reports. By the way, that's how they tap into your the real big shebang. When people want to know where's the big shebang at with the birth certificate so-called conspiracy, some say it's not worth all that. There's a way to tap in, and common law still exists. But you just got to know how to invoke it and where, which specific courts, and how to start a particular case. I hear, by the way, and then you also got to capture the estate. Notice when famous people die, they always refer to as their estate. Something to think about. Think about it. Estate says. Gretchen Helms says, "Salute God, Darkman X." Okay, appreciate it. It says 100 fire. Appreciate you, Gretchen. Once again, big shout out to the other. She was giving a shout out to some other others in here. Money Boy Films. She was giving a shout out to Darkman X. So that's for Darkman. Appreciate you guys joining. Money Boy Films says, I just got finished with my 1099A and got it accepted. And now I'm on the next step, which is connecting with my trustee. Okay, excellent. Excellent, Money Boy. Already got the approval letter from the IRS. Awesome. Awesome. Fire says, that's fire, Mr. Money. Money Boy says, thanks, L. Says, did you see the other comment? Question mark, Mr. Money. Okay, speaking of Money Boy, okay, I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to get ready to shut this down, guys. I'm going to probably pick this up, that section where I left off the other time. I'm trying to read the rest of these comments. I appreciate you guys joining. Don't forget to like the video, share the video, and check out my previous videos, by the way, where I cover this topic for further clarification. Okay, they're having a conversation. Okay, so with that being said, guys, this is Dorsey's Resource channel. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, IG. After the video uploads, give me some time. I'll transfer everything over. You can check my previous videos if you guys want to follow me on social media. You guys like the content that I put out. Don't forget to make sure you subscribe, thumbs up the video. By the way, real legends never die. They live in our hearts forever. Guys, stay woke out there. Appreciate you guys. God bless. Have a blessed night, blessed morning. You guys stay safe. Until next time, one love, deuces. I'm out. Okay, here. Got to, okay, go to this other screen here.